purple diamonds are very rare, but as you noticed in the news recently, somebody bought a purple diamond for $37.7 million.
Well, I think they wanted 37. They only got 28.
Did they?
Yeah, they didn't get what they wanted.
Or maybe I won't get my 3.7. It's only 10% of the size, so I should get.
Okay.
I thought I should get 3.8
Okay,
million,
2.8
but
mil.
2.8 million.
Okay, all right.
Anyway.
So is that as perfect as this flawless one that was in the for sale at Christie's?
Well, flawless. I don't know what flawless means, because if it's got a colour in it, then it's got impurities in it too.
No, really. So what causes the impurities? What causes the colour?
Well, they won't give me that diamond so I can measure to be honest with it.
Right.
But normally it's either bits of the carbon's missing,
Right.
or other atoms included in the diamond.
So diamond's made of carbon in a nice sort of lattice.
Correct.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it is, to me, probably the simplest solid in nature, because it is all one atom and it is cubic, which is the highest symmetry that you can get in solids.
Right. So this purple is actually a dirty diamond. Is that what you're telling me? It's got something else in it.
It's got, there you're looking at, there's a greenish or yellowy green, and that's nitrogen, and nearly every diamond has nitrogen in it. If you radiate that and kick out the carbon atoms, that causes what we call vacancies. If you heat the vacancies fairly gently, slightly more than a home oven, the vacancies move and become associated with the nitrogen that are there, which are only, parts per million of nitrogen.
Right.
But once you get that, it gives you the purple colour, which is nitrogen and vacancy associated with one another, called the NV center, nitrogen V.
So I could bake one up in my own oven, you reckon?
Not quite.
Oh,
not
okay.
quite.
Oh.
Not quite. The green ones you can buy, they're only worth about $20.
Right.
But because
So did you manufacture this purple one?
I organised to get it, so I bought a one that would have been green.
Yeah.
I sent it to the guys to kick out the carbons, which in my case was Japan.
Uh-huh.
Then when I came back here, I cooked it in my oven, which goes slightly higher than the home oven, and it comes out the nice purple colour.
So are the green ones considered less quality?
People don't like it, yeah.
Uh-huh. And so that's why they're $20 to buy.
They're very, for the people who grow them, it's the easiest thing to grow.
Uh-huh. Okay. So for doing science, you actually don't want too much purple. You want it just clear.
For my purpose, I don't mind quite a lot, because it makes it easy for me to measure some of the property. The greatest application of it is when the purple is so weak that you can't see that it's purple. Because the center that we've created to do it is this nitrogen and a vacancy.
Right.
And it's a nitrogen and a vacancy that is used for all sorts of purposes.
Yeah.
If this little equipment here if I shine a light on it, it emits red light. But the amount of red light depends on the environment.
So that's a diamond that it will emit red light.
Correct. Well, I've got a shine light on it, and it gives it out.
If it's got the
emits,
NV center in it.
If it's got the NV, it shines red light down.
Yep.
But it's like a chameleon. The amount of red light depends on its environment. But if there's a magnetic field around, it doesn't shine so much red light. Right. So therefore, you can quite easily use it to detect a magnetic field.
Ah, okay.
And better still, if you shining microwaves on it, you can find frequencies, and from the frequencies that stops it shining the red light, you can work out the environment. In particular, you can work out if there is a weak magnetic field there. You can work out the size of the magnetic field, the direction of the magnetic field, and hence it is used heavily for magnetometry
Right.
to measure
okay.
a field.
And this is just a couple of molecules in the crystal, so you can make it very small.
Correct. But what I've just described is what they call an ensemble, so I'm measuring large scale things.
Yep.
But indeed, the properties work right down to a single defect.
Right.
And a single defect, then you can tell the environment where that single defect is. And then the diamond itself needn't be anything like this sort of size. It's absolutely tiny, and it's very hard to get now the amount of nitrogen in the sample low enough so that you can detect one at a time, because normally they're so heavily doped that you can't see one. You can always see hundreds and thousands.
Of them all.
Hundreds and thousands.
Was there a purple 100,000? I don't remember.
And that's where the excitement is. By being able to detect one, like detecting one atom, there's all the coherence properties you can get once you're down to one atom or one molecule. And
what are coherence properties?
I tend to think of it like ringing a bell, and that when you hit it, it rings for a while.
Yeah.
And as long as it rings, you can use that ringing to convey that ringing to another atom. That's transferring the coherence of things.
Right. Okay.
So having things that are long-term coherent, so it's a transition that's coherence. It's not ringing the bell. It's an optical effect, or in this case, a microwave effect.
Yeah.
Whatever frequency is, you hit it, it rings at that frequency you've hit it, whether it's microwaves, gigahertz, or optical. And it's those properties they use for doing quantum communication, right? At the optical level, if it's light.
Do you think these telephone bidder from China maybe was doing quantum communications with this purple diamond they paid 28 million for?
Very unlikely. I think that's a business where it's always just aesthetic properties.
Right, okay.
Matter of fact, if they know I've grown it, it immediately has very little commercial value.
Even if it looks almost identical?
Even if its properties are what I would say better, purer, as long as it's not natural, it doesn't have so much commercial. Although I think De Beers are trying to now market the ones that they make as well.
Right, okay.
But still nothing like the $1 million sort of mark.
So have you ever given anyone significant in your life a diamond, a green or a clear or a purple?
How do you think I get awards? I've got lots of diamonds. Oh, yeah. Over the years, we have investigated lots of other gemstones which have similar or related optical properties.
Run me quickly through a list of those.
Emerald.
And what makes them green?
Well, that's iron, but ruby's the obvious one.
Yep.
The first laser was ruby, and that's chromium in corundum, which is a clear crystal. Like here, it's nitrogen in diamond. There, it's chromium in corundum, which is chemically an aluminium oxide crystal.
Right. Sapphire?
It's titanium.
Right.
Titanium, and that's where I started my first my PhD. It was looking at transition metal ions, likes of chromium, nickel, titanium, in clear crystals like that. And when I came here, first of all, I would looked at similar materials. But then we got interested in the rare earth ions. And probably a lot of this to me started with the development of lasers. Now, lasers were well known by the time I came here, but what became more readily available was tunable lasers. And it was almost tunable lasers with very, very well defined colors, which you could move, and you could move to a frequency, a color that you were interested in one of these other materials.
Yeah.
And it was almost looking for uses for tunable lasers that got me into a lot of this, and in fact was the reason I first looked at what we now see a purple diamond.
What do you see the future of them being in 50 or 100 years from now?
Well, the properties of the NV center are so phenomenal. You can, I've mentioned, you can measure magnetic field, you can measure electric field, they can changes with temperature, changes with stress.
Right.
And it all works at room temperature. And like we tell the coherence, if we talk to the coherence, it's that center that the quantum brilliance is using to try and develop the quantum computer here.
Yeah.
So quantum and quantum communication. And again, we mentioned coherence. In this case, it's a ringing at the microwave frequency that's at room temperature. And at room temperature, it is, I think it still is, the longest coherence time you can get at room temperature. Because of all these properties, people tend to be looking for other materials that might try and beat them.
Yeah.
Usually, if they do manage to beat them, it's beating one of the 6 properties or something like that, not all.
Right.
So I tend to think NV is the one that set the benchmark for a lot of these possible applications thingies. And again, emphasize that's room temperature. Usually when they find they can beat it, but often then they have to cool to very low temperatures, and that's not quite so appealing. A quantum computer, for instance, be able to develop it at room temperature, whereas phosphorus and silicon or trapped atoms and a few of the other things needs pretty sophisticated equipment around it, and often low temperatures as well, to get the properties you need to follow the coherence. NV is going to be around for a very long time. I don't think it's these range of properties, I don't think is ever going to be beaten. And maybe not so much as itself, but as a diagnostic tool, it's going to be around for a heck of a long time. That aspect's
Do you
only
reckon we'll have them in our phone and they'll be able to...
GPS is a possibility, but heard of that. But it's more, the one, I don't know if it's public, but open brain surgery. You can put a small one on the end of a tip and change of the light value into sound, and then the possibility of using it as a stethoscope. That would be the right thing. And they use it in open brain surgery, because if you can get that very, very close to a active, to see a current flowing in an active vein, whereas you move it close in this one, there's no activity there, so they can tell. Whereas open brain surgery, they have to actually keep the patient awake at the moment to tell, says, do you feel something there? No, so it's dead. Feel something? Yeah, I can say that.
Now my knee hurts.
So now you can...
my hand hurts now.
Yeah, so now they can... And that's where it's likely to be used in all the semiconductor devices, because it's a piece of dust that's the diamond size. You can get it, if you can get it close enough within, less than millimeter or microns, then you can detect currents or whatever, currents, particular that's a magnetometry use.
So it's actually going to be used for medicine?
Yes. And because it's carbon, you can stick it right in the body. It's not going to do the body much harm.
So you think a pretty big future for diamonds, but not these 37 million purple ones?
Not these 37, probably fortunately. I don't think there'd be much of a future for anything that's worth 37 million.
All right, thanks, Neil.